Hey guys, welcome back, and hello if you are new. But I decided to kind of combine my November favourites with my December favourites to create kind of like a bumper edition. So I'm going to kick things off with Deeds of Flesh and their brand new album Nucleus. So Undergang have released an album called Aldrig al Levet, and without a doubt this is probably the most sort of hyped up album in the underground this year, I would say. And to be perfectly honest, I think that the hype is justified. Of course this is pure death metal, but they also have some punk influences, and there's also some interesting death doom in there as well. There's a lot of changing of pace with different melodies and that sort of bullfrog belching, I call it. The record also doesn't overstay its welcome, which I thought was really, really great, because there are some records where you're kind of like, right, we didn't need all of this extra stuff, and it just kind of keeps going on. But this one is nice and concise and does it really, really well. And the best way I can describe him is kind of like a combination of Demilich meets Obituary. You know, so they've got that kind of groove of Obituary, but then the sort of like proper death metal of Demilich, and definitely one to check out for sure. XOTH on Dawnbreed Records, and I cannot tell you how excited I am about this band. I love this record. This record is so interesting, it has so much energy about it, and it combines all of the stuff that I really, really love about death metal and sci-fi. But it does so in such an interesting way, and the reason I like it so much, I think, is because of the leads. And there's some really, really cool stuff on guitar happening here, particularly with like dive bombs, whammy bars, all that sort of stuff. And they're just a really great band, and I think they've got so much potential for what's actually going to come next. I think that from this they're going to really, you know, be noticed, and particularly with the whole sci-fi aesthetic, it does so well on the record. So Deeds of Flesh are a band that previously were founded by Eric Lindmark. So if you're not familiar with Eric Lindmark, he's also the CEO, well, was the CEO of Unique Leader. Sadly, he's passed away. But this is the first album to be released under Deeds of Flesh, and also features Jacob E. Kingston coming back on vocals. But with that in mind, it's very much a who's who of the metal world, because there's a lot of guest appearances on this album. There's an appearance from Luke LeMay of Gorguts, you've got Frank Mullen, Suffocation, Corpse Grinder, Cannibal Corpse, and of course John Gallagher from Dying Fetus, and loads more. You know, like there's the intros, and it's very much tech death done incredibly well, which is the main reason I'm giving it, you know, a shout out on this video. Just because it is a really interesting record, and I like the fact that there's those guest appearances, and it kind of gives a nod to the fantastic legacy of Eric Lindmark. So definitely check out Deeds of Flesh. This is very much a black metal record. So the band are based from France, and I think they combine elements of kind of like a bit of a groove with some post-rock, but yeah, first and foremost it's very much black metal. And I really quite like this band because I think they're doing something a little bit different. Obviously they're following in the footsteps of the likes of Death Heaven, you know, that sort of black gaze. But they also have some really interesting atmospheric sections with like this sound of water, which kind of courses through the album. They've also got the saxophone which comes in, which is interesting, and then piano, which all creates this quite pained atmosphere, and definitely reminds me of that sort of Alcest vibe. So many guitarists are always kind of looking to try and show off flashy things and, you know, try and all these different licks and look what I can do. Plini really focuses on what the song needs, and I was really, really excited by his EP that I reviewed previously, and I think that Plini has learned so much to create this new album. Pan, for example, has really interesting playing and incorporates different instruments as well, like the saxophone, which I really, really enjoyed. And particularly after that Doja Cat incident, I think a lot more people are going to be taking notice of Plini, as he is just a fantastic player, and one that's definitely stayed with me. Next up, we go back to pure death metal annihilation with Of Feather and Bone and their album Sulfuric Disintegration. I like the fact of how caustic it is, how abrasive it is, and how it just doesn't give a fuck. You know, it just literally will rip you to shreds. And the fact that there's only 3 of them, and it sounds like you've got an army pretty much coming over towards you, is very, very intimidating at the same time. Definitely check that one out, because it's one of the most relentless records of the year, and it's just great, great death metal. Have you ever wanted to find out what it might sound like to fight a dragon? Well, enter Eternal Champion. For me, Eternal Champion are everything that is great about heavy metal. It's been mentioned on a hell of a lot of Album of the Year lists, and you can easily see why. They've got killer melodies and a sound which is truly iconic and brings Ken Kelly's fantastic artwork to life. It was produced, mixed and mastered by Arthur Rizk as well, so you know that it sounds big and beefy when it needs to be, but also has that sense of the organic, and I hate to use that term. And I just really liked it because it's a bit of a breath of fresh air, especially when I've been so saturated with death metal this year, and I really haven't stopped playing it ever since I got the promo. Next up, we slow things down with Andrew Black and Ms. Moore on their EP Dialethea. So I wasn't expecting this, I'll be totally honest. This is an EP which is 2 tracks, I think it lasts about half an hour, and it's literally just kind of atmospheric sound. And I'm not normally one for this kind of stuff, you know, I like, you know, things which have got a little bit more going on. But for me, it has a really calming sense to it. It reminded me of Ulrich Schnaus, Tangerine Dream, you know, those kind of really sweeping soundscapes, and was totally not what I was expecting. It's just got that very reverential feeling to it, and it's become one of those albums where, you know, if things get a little bit too much, I just pop this little EP on, and then it just kind of like soothes you and calms you, and I really, really like that. Scapevoid very kindly reached out to me, and I am so glad that they did. So it's a one-man project by a guy called Matt Hobart, who is an absolutely fantastic musician, and he's come together with the likes of Jamie King, who previously has worked with Between the Buried and Me, and many, many other fantastic bands. The Contortionist is another one that comes to mind, as well as Corey Myers, who designed the album's artwork, and he's previously worked with Leprous, so it's very much in that prog metal spectrum. But what I didn't expect was just how brilliant this album was, and I had to make sure that I included it on my end of year list favourites. It's prog metal with a modern twist, and I think it really does deserve your time. There's lots of very interesting things to come from this album, and definitely check out Absent Passages for sure. So, proving that Finland is very much a fertile ground for some absolutely fantastic death metal, this album was released via Dark Descent Records, and it rips. I love this. It's really, really interesting. It's death metal, you know, fairly kind of old school death metal, really. It also features the drummer from XOTH as well, which is, you know, a welcome surprise. I really like XOTH, so that was cool. It's very solid old school death metal with some really interesting harmonies, and definitely one to get your ears around. And last but certainly not least is Havakrunu with Unyo Soimen Sota. I think I've probably said that completely wrong, but this is such a great record. I discovered these guys after seeing them on a lot of end of year lists. It sounds like Immortal meets Ensiferum riding into battle. I also think that these guys are doing something different. It doesn't sound like something I've heard before. There's so much energy behind it, and every time I finish it, it just makes me want to go back and listen to it all over again. The songs are just as epic as the mountains of Finland and Norway, but then it has that classic sort of heavy metal 80s feel to it. And some of the guitar solos on this album are just fucking mad. Really, really amazing record. So those are my final favourites for 2020. Let me know what some of your favourites of November and December have been, and leave a comment down below. If you did enjoy this video and you've got this far, thank you ever so much, and if you could hit that like and subscribe button, that would be amazing. And I will see you in 2021 for my January favourites. Take care, my friends, and have a lovely Christmas.